Did you know? Long before COVID lockdowns, Zimbabwe lived through its own silent, fear-enforced informal shutdown that led to schools closing, hospitals overflowing, and fear spreading faster than the disease itself. It was December 2008, and Zimbabwe faced one of the worst public health disasters in modern-day African history, a cholera outbreak, something preventable that then turned into a national emergency. This week in history, we travel back 17 years to revisit the era where communities were forced to be their own doctors and ordinary people survived only through impossible ingenuity. Zimbabwe's cholera outbreak began quietly in Chitungwiza in August 2008, but by December, it had exploded. The country, already facing political and economic pressures of its own, from severe hyperinflation to sham elections, was almost on the verge of collapse. Water pipes burst and were never repaired, leaving taps dry for months. Sewage flowed openly in the streets, and garbage remained uncollected, leading to mounds and mounds of rubbish living side by side with people. And of course, everything spiraled. By mid-December, the consequences were severe. 18,413 suspected cases had been reported by December 15th, and there were nearly 1,000 deaths, and the disease had spread across rural and urban areas, making it a national tragedy. Yet even with these heartbreaking statistics, the real story lived in the homes and in the streets. Families walked for hours to get to their nearest healthcare centers, pushing relatives in wheelbarrows as ambulances were not working, and this happened even in urban epicenters like Glenview and Budiriro in Harare. A severe shortage of IV drips arose, and patients had to take oral rehydration solutions from buckets. And at home, residents boiled water using firewood as electricity was almost always out. In the communities, everyone became a healthcare worker, teaching neighbors how to mix salt and sugar solutions. To cap the spread of the disease, public gatherings were banned and unnecessary movements were restricted. What was worse were the bans surrounding funerals, where Zimbabweans, used to days-long funerals, commiserating with loved ones and neighbors, were forbidden from attending funerals, leaving bereaved families to grieve alone. And thus, 12 years before COVID would hit, Zimbabwe was experiencing pandemic-style controls. Yet even in those dire moments, communities united. Women organized neighborhood cleanup drives with no gloves, yet determined to burn the garbage that was infecting their homes. Teachers and pastors became health educators. Residents dug wells in their backyards, sharing scarce water with their neighbors. And as such, it was the ordinary people, not the institutions, who helped to slow the spread effectively. By the time the epidemic was contained, over 4,000 people had died, while close to 100,000 had been infected, making it the worst cholera outbreak in Zimbabwe's modern history and one of the worst in Africa in that decade. And thus the 2008 outbreak was not just a health crisis, it was a warning that sometimes history does not come with an explosion, it can begin with a glass of water. And this brings us to this week in Zimbabwean history. Were you around during this outbreak? If yes, what do you remember about the outbreak and what stuck out the most for you? And with that question in mind, we wrap it up for this week. Thank you for the engagement thus far, and while at it, please do not forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Till the next one, and goodbye.